年，我已经28年没有回去过了，我也是28年没有，这个也是，就没时间，你找不到机会专门跑一趟，除非在那边开会。
All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm very excited about this next panel. We have two amazing experts on animal law in China, and we are so fortunate that they were both able to be here today.
Oh, yeah.
So I will introduce both of them right now. The first speaker will be Professor Song Wei, and he is a professor and director of the Law Institute at the University of Science and Technology of China, which is the nation's top university for technology and science. He is also vice president of China Science, Technology, and Law Association. He was a visiting scholar at MSU in 2003 and later a Fulbright scholar at the University of Washington. His primary teaching and research interests are in the area of animal welfare law, environmental law, and intellectual property law. And Dr. Wei published the very first animal welfare law paper and first book on the subject in China. And he's also taught the very first animal welfare law class at his university since 2001. And on a more personal note, I first met Dr. Song Wei in 2003 at a conference in Beijing, and at that time I was so inspired and struck by all the work that he was doing, and particularly at that time because nobody else was really doing much of anything in China. He's truly a pioneer in China on behalf of the animals. And then next we will hear from Dr. Peter Lee. Professor Lee is an associate professor at the University of Houston in downtown. His research focuses on China's animal welfare policies and the country's animal protection movement at a time of rapid social transformation. He's published articles on China's wildlife law enforcement, culture and human-animal relations, factory farming and animal welfare, wildlife farming and cruelty, and others. He also writes for Hong Kong and Beijing's English language newspapers on current events. And in a most recent commentary published on South China Morning Post, he called on the Chinese authorities to outlaw domestic ivory production and sales to suppress Chinese demand for ivory tusks. He is also a consultant for the Humane Society International on issues and collaborative programs with China. And for me, it's especially wonderful to finally meet Dr. Lee because I've been hearing about him for years. I mean, Joyce has told me all about him, and as well as others. And again, another incredible pioneer. So please, let's extend a warm welcome to both of these wonderful speakers.
Thank you so much, Pom, and I'm so pleased and be very honored to come here.
Yeah. You need to really speak into the mic so that they can hear you in the back.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, thank you so much. Yeah. So after a very wonderful lunch, I want to try my efforts best, try to let every audience not to sleep too fast. I'm so sorry, my poor English. China animal welfare legislation. It's a very difficult issue, and it's a very broad issue. So how to give an analysis? I don't want to use a theoretic from legal theory to conduct such research. So I choose 3 cases occurred recently in China. From that 3 cases, you can get a general idea about the Chinese animal legislation, how about its contemporary situation, and how about its the future. Yeah. Animal welfare to Chinese society, actually, it's a very new concept. Actually, in the winter of 1999, in my university, it's the first time my students and me, it's my first time, I'm sure, including my students, to hear about animal welfare. It's a very, very brand new conception in China. So, the time passed so quickly, 16 years passed. Although the animal welfare legislation, and the national level, it's very, very difficult to put it forward. I think Jill Robinson and so many experts are very familiar with Chinese issues. But we can find some new brights in the different directions. That's my university, and that's the building. It's the first time that Chinese society gets the animal welfare conception. That's a life science, the school of USTC. So I choose especially for the three cases. The one is about dog eating in the Guangxi province. And the second one is about Green Town, Bell Bio, to be listed in the stock market. And the third one is about the ivory. Recently, Chinese government destroyed that kind of wildlife products. Why I choose these three cases? Because the first case, the Yunlin Dog Meat Festival, actually there is no any legislations to stop dog eating in China. So that's no laws, no regulations. And in the second case, it's about Chinese medicine, traditional medicine. There are some laws, but there is no animal welfare law. There are some wildlife and some medicine regulations. The third one, there are so many, a huge number of the regulations, rules, and legislations. So from that three angles, from that different perspective, you may find these three cases, actually we have, in China, we have the positive results, but with the different channel. So the first dog eating festival, actually, dog eating, I don't think it's a Chinese traditional culture. Yes, there are some dog eating the habits or custom in some area in China, particularly concentrated in southern part, and particularly the border area with Vietnam, and the northern part, northeast part, that area border with North Korea. And in the most part of China, there is no dog eating tradition. So it's not tradition. It's not tradition. I lived along the Yangtze River area. In that area, and also in the Yellow River area, that's two main, the residential the habitats in China. There's no dog eating festival. So in the year 2004, that's the beginning of the summer. In Chinese, the lunar calendar is the start of the summertime. So the local restaurants, the owners, and associated with the local governments and the local media, and they want to promote the festival. That caused very huge responses, strong responses. And you may divide that two groups. One group from animal lovers, students, NGO, and the media, and the other one, restaurants, and some locals, and government and media. So there are several different opinions, different groups. They controversial debates every day during that period of time, even caused the violence. So many people, some people even injured. Some restaurants were destroyed by the others. So we should stop the dog eating, but we also should stop the violence in this issue. So I divided that the opinions into Group A, Group B, and Group C. Group A, and say it's a industry, it's a business, and something like that. And the mainstream, the media, with also with different voices. Even the People's Daily is the main, the press in China. So, dog eating. Actually, from this case, from different opinion you may find. Anyway, what kind of the reason that the restaurants or local government want to set this festival? It's a bad habit. It's a bad habit. They want to earn the profit. And this kind of the habit must be prohibited in China. You may find that's the picture. Yeah, that's a picture. So many people moved from different cities in China and moved to that small city. And they protested and they against it. And even they destroyed some restaurants, sell dog meat. And that's caused so many different responses and discussions. Actually, that kind of festival at last were abandoned because eating dog meat is not the mainstream of Chinese cuisine culture. Yeah. In some special area, in some special seasons, yeah, there are some habits to have the dog meat. So actually, that's so many restaurants in the Yunnan city, and they want to sell dog meat. Actually, it's driven by profit. They want to attract the tourists, and they want to sell the different kind of the products, and they want to form the industry chain. And also there are some food safety concern. So from the media, including the foreign media, international media, also report this, the issue, this case. And according to the Chinese existing law, legal framework, regional government should take reasonable action, not inaction. Yeah, I don't know how about to describe this, because although there is no existing the regulation to stop the dog eating, but the local government, the regional authority can stop that. They can use the reasonable the action. Sometimes the regional government use an inaction, not to take a serious case, so it's a mistake that caused the social chaos. That's the reason. And the second one is about Greytown extracting bale. It's a cruelty. It's a cruelty. I think that I visited the farm, the base in Chengdu of the G.R. Robinson. So many black bear rescued, and you know it's not easy in China to stop this cruelty. The business actually it's a cruelty, not business. I took a picture. I use this the picture from the Greytown and from other official websites. So that's the Chinese media and the Chinese newspaper reports that's the cruelty. And actually it's not a tradition of Chinese medicine. Some Chinese the medicine use the animal products, but most of them use the herb, use the plants, not the animal products. So you can also divide that two groups, support and against. I think so. I list Animals Asia as a top, and so, but there are still some people, including professionals, including doctors, scientists, support it. So, that's a very cruelty that must be stopped. And it's not necessary. All that kinds of product can be replaceable. Can be replaced. I listed different kinds of the herb, of the Chinese medicine. It's according to Chinese culture, that's the mainstream. That's the mainstream. And from this year, the Nobel Prize owner, the Chinese scientist, and she also attracted the elements from the herb, from the plants. And we must notice that although in China there is no animal welfare legislation, but the black bear bile extraction is also illegal products, because until now there is no approved number, and there is no approved certificate to the industry production. So green time must change to the green development, to the sustainable development. So there are several cases. There are different kind of questions and arguments in my class. That I conclude some questions from my students. Is that business ethics and their bear bio powder used in healthcare and its selling in the market break regulations. It's not animal welfare legislation, but it's the rules regulation issued by the Ministry of Health in 2001. Although it's a not very big, not very important the regulation, but in this case, it's a very, very important. And IPO resisting. You may find it's a very, very inspiring. This IPO, that green tongue want to be listed in the stock market, and so many people against it. But there is no animal law, animal welfare, or animal protection to stop that. So many people, including lawyers, law professionals, they use another way from the IPO management, interim measures, and from the other, including financial verification audit, because green tongue could not meet the demands of that to the criteria. So that IPO, the task failed. So it is thus clear that financial management laws and regulations, such as security laws, accounting laws, play an important role to stop the IPO. So that's the second case. So Green Tongue and the Chinese Traditional Medicine Association, I hope that you must change the attitude to the animals, particularly for wild animals. Actually, that association, although it's an NGO, but actually with a very, very strong governmental background. So sometimes it's a barrier to make the Chinese traditional medicine to go to the good or better roads. And that the third case is about destroy confiscated ivory publicly. That's the first time. That Chinese the Bureau, State Forest Bureau, and General Administration of Customs had a mission to enforce confiscated ivory public destruction. That's the first time to destroy that ivory products. And just 5 days ago, there are some new reports and new regulations. Some Chinese people, particularly some Chinese new researchers, they traveled to Africa, to some other countries, and bring back different kinds of white products. And from the 5 days ago, they issued a new regulation. It's strictly prohibited. You cannot, although in some other countries it's legal, but if you bring that back to China, it will be illegal. And so I think it's a very, very good news. So from this case, from destroying and from that news media reports, and this case tell us how to enforce existing law. We have so many laws, regulations in this area, but enforcement of these laws until now actually is far from satisfaction. Some enforcement forces are very weak, and also some corruption between the criminals and officers. Although these days anti-corruption movement is very, very strict from the top leaders until to the basic cadres. So many people were put into prison Yeah, so this situation changed a lot. I think it's a very good news. But the enforcement of existing law then must be strengthened. Not just want to to write so many drafts about legislation and so many papers. Enforcement, I think, is a key issue too. And the second one, you must strict controlling of the trading. And Chinese icon, basketball icon Yao Ming and some other, including singers and some other athletes, say it's, no trading, no killing. It's nowadays it's very, very popular in China, from primary school, from kindergarten to the universities to the communities. And some of Chinese regulations and laws that must be revised or amended, particularly the China Wildlife Protection Law. Because that kind of law is too outdated, and just take the wild animal as the natural resources, and the enforcement of that law is so weak. And the Chinese enforcement of law just rely on the Forestry Bureau. It's not easy. In China, most of the time, if you want really, the government wants really to stop the damage or the harm to the wildlife, they usually use a unified enforcement of the law. That means different authorities unified as very strong forces to destroy some illegal. And the second one, Customers Law of the People's Republic and the Criminal Law of the People's Republic of China. Although in this area, in China, criminal law is very, very strict. But for some very special animals like a panda, like a tiger, it's a low program. Nobody can harm, can kill the panda or tiger. But for the others, it's another case. So yeah, that criminal, that should be revised too. Changing consumer habits in some area, in some times, in some seasons. Yeah. Wild animals have been used in food, wearing medicine, even in entertainment for unnecessary business purposes. That must be changed. New type of culture. From this case, we must realize new type of culture must be established. I mean, we must upgrade and strengthen Chinese very, very good tradition. Because most of Chinese historical tradition records, Chinese food mostly came from the vegetables, from the rice, very few from the animals. So that's Chinese character. Ren means kind to everything. Kind to people, kind to animals, kind to trees and grass. And 天人合一 means the heaven and the earth and the people. We must harmonize as a very good harmonized situation. Yeah. Timing is okay? Yeah. And international trade. One Belt, One Road nowadays is the top priority in China. It's an initiative. Because international trade, I listened to several presentations yesterday and this morning. I think it's a very, very helpful, very, very supportive for Chinese people to think about how to do the next step. Because One Belt, One Road is an open system. And there are so many people, so many countries, different cultures, and different companies, different traditions. So how to cooperate with the others. And the second one, government disciplines. It's of course, it's a very, very important. Last year in the Barcelona conference, my topic was about shark fin. And nowadays, it's very, very difficult to find the shark fin in China. If you can find shark fin, just to make a phone call to the discipline committee. So it's a very strict. I think the senior officers, even the businessmen, perhaps put into prison. So I think it's a Chinese Chinese way, Chinese characteristics is a very strict ruling party disciplines. Almost all the products, from food to clothing, made from wild animals, will be prohibited among public sector consumption, including ivory, including some others. Yeah. Popularization of animal law. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I fast. Yeah. Gradually improve the Chinese wild protection ability and people's consciousness for wildlife protection to make up missed lessons. I think Chinese society, including Chinese universities, including my university, we should catch up with and to make up missed lessons. Join international wildlife protection scheme. And the new trend is about new normal. New normal, with a very special meaning in China. It's different from economics, because in China these days, actually, from the year before last year, the government, from the central government to the regional government, even to the state-owned enterprises, will not be calculated or evaluated. It's a successful performance by GDP or by profit. So I think it's a very good sign. Yeah, it's a very good way. Yeah. And to calculate, to evaluate successful or not successful, use different factors, not just economic the growth. And the new culture establishment. And the younger generation and the students, and you may find so many volunteers and university students, and they use new media. It's very, very effective. And how to stop dog eating, and how to stop some other animal cruelty issues. They use this new media, so it's a very, very effective. And Chinese animal protection is still promoted slowly, and has some breakthroughs in some special regions and in some special industries. For example, international trade, and in some regions like in Shanghai and Hunan in some area. So prospect, these three cases have positive results, but that positive results came from the different ways. It inspired us that although it had been a long way to make national animal welfare legislation, 10 years ago, I drafted several drafts about animal welfare, animal protection drafts. Until now, I don't think in the next 5 years, the National People's Congress will approve that kind of national law. But I'm still optimistic. We can do a lot in animal welfare in different parts. And the animal welfare legislation moves slowly and even has a variety of difficulties. That is, the global and regional animal law network should be established. I think it's a very, very important because it's a small world. Actually, from the Barcelona to the United States and to China, so to the different area, we can share the experience. We can join together and push animal welfare issues, put it forward, particularly in China. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to say a few words of thanks. Yeah, I can end it. I would like to thank the Lewis and Clark School of Law for inviting me, and Penn in particular, and the Liberty. Thank you very much for inviting me here. You know, I have to say this because of two reasons. When I got the invitation, I was very excited. Why? Because this was the second time for me to come back to Portland. Last time was 20 years ago when I was a graduate student. So I came for political science conference. So I say, yes, I'm coming. I want to see Portland for the second time. And the second, this conference, held by law school, and I'm going to meet a lot of young, future lawyers. In August, I was in Washington, D.C., and with a group of Chinese, lawyers and, experts, officials, we visited the State Department and learning that the Chinese president is coming for the visit with the First Lady. So I asked the State Department official, have you thought of presenting a gift? What kind of gift are you going to give them, right? Well, you have to give gift, right, to be nice. They say they have not thought about it. Then we told him, why don't you ask Michelle Obama to present China's First Lady a puppy? How is that? Puppy is disarming, is that right? Now, it's not anything. We don't criticize China's animal welfare problem. Why not give something sweet? She cannot resist. If she can bring that puppy back to mainland China, there will be it would be in the news everywhere, and the dog meat industry will be greatly embarrassed. Or the Yuan dog meat festival would be in big problem. I follow up with email. I never got a response. So that's why when I come here, seeing all these future lawyers, because the president, members of Congress, many of them are lawyers. Is that right? So I just hope, one of you in the future, if you happen to become president, do something, okay? If Chinese leaders are still not keeping pets, still not posing pictures with the pets, you have something to do. Okay. Anyway, so that's so thank you very much for the opportunity. What I'm going to talk about today, a lot of people ask me why Chinese people are so cruel. Is China a country that is based on a culture of animal cruelty? Are the Chinese culturally programmed to violence to animals? And my answer has always been, I say, culture is not an explanation. Okay? Traditional medicine, Chinese people use traditional medicine, the use of bear bile, or tiger parts, or any other animal, parts. In the past, Western countries also use animal parts. Okay? Culture is evolving. All right? So if you use culture as an excuse, that means, you are blaming something that is not responsible for. So I don't buy into the cultural argument. So I would say politics has a lot to do with a lot of the problems in communist China, in mainland China. Okay. So today I'm going to just very briefly go over China's wildlife protection law revision efforts, because since 2009, 2008, okay, something to do with China, African elephants have suffered the greatest carnage, and a lot of those ivories were intercepted, bound for mainland China. And as people ask, does China have no animal of wildlife protection law? Actually, it does. It's just not effective. So today I'm going to just briefly go over China's wildlife protection legal system, wildlife law in particular, and the politics that has been in the way of enforcement in China. Okay, now when we talk about China, we talk about a panda bear, right? But China is not just a panda bear, right? Okay, and China is huge. That's why everything that happens in China has a global impact. Between China is enormous, right? The size of the United States. Anything happens positively in China, in the United States, will positively impact the entire world. So if you look at China, it's a huge landmass. Look at Japan, how small Japan is. If you put Japan inside China, can hold many Japans. Okay, so that's why you see. And if you look at this, China occupies a global, biological, strategic position. It is one of the most, so-called mega, sites, mega diversity, hotspots, next to United States, Brazil, Australia, and North America, Alaska, and also of course Southeast Asia. So it's extremely important because of the rich biodiversity, right? And of course, China is a tiger range country. China also has elephants. Some people don't know that, right? China has elephants, yes. And this is something, which is, rumored to be extinct, but we don't know whether it's extinct or not. The Chinese, scientists failed to find any. This is, Yangtze River river dolphin, or baizi, in Chinese, another way of saying it. So China is one of the richest countries in terms of animal species, and according to China's own survey, this is the most authoritative survey conducted by State Forest Bureau in 2009, and produced and confirmed statistics that China occupies a very important position. And if you look at, China is also in the middle of the migration route for birds from, Arctic to, Australia. So if China's, environmental has a problem or animal situation is deteriorating, it would impact, global, migration of the birds. So, does China have laws? Yes, China has wildlife laws. The first, serious, legislation or regulation was, adopted in 1962. Between 1960 to 1962, China had a great famine. 30 million peasants starved to death because of Mao Zedong's, ill-conceived economic policy. Now, when people were dying massively, they eat rats, snakes, all the dogs disappeared, all the cats disappeared, and they took to the mountains. And the panda bears were slaughtered, and all the other kinds of animals were slaughtered for food. And even government offices send the army to hunt Mongolian gazelle or other animals to supply for the leaders in Beijing. Right? If you read some of the latest Chinese memoirs, the late President Liu Shaoqi, his wife had a memoir, and she said in 1961 they got an entire, carcass of, Mongolian gazelle, by, the army. So the high-ranking officials were eating, wildlife. That's why, wildlife, slaughter got out of control. So in 1962, the State Council, the Prime Minister's office, decided that enough is enough. We need to, stop it. Right? So for the first time, pandas were listed as endangered species and to be protected. So 1962. And of course, China joined CITES 1980 and become part of the, Chinese legal system. And 1988, China, adopted wildlife protection law and implemented the next year, 1989. And of course, regulation on the protection of nature reserves, 1994, and the farm arms control law, 1996, because it has a section on hunting. And also, regulation on black, bear farming technology. Now, this, regulation by the State, Forestry Bureau had a lot to do with the, heroic, efforts by Jill Robinson. She's here, Animals Asia founder. But anyway, so yes, but all these and all other, relevant, policies and laws, the most important is the wildlife, protection law, which is considered the basic law of China's wildlife legal system. I'll just give you, a snapshot of it. But what was the result? Now China has wildlife protection law, 1989. What was the problem? What was the result? China since then had a booming wildlife farming. More than 20,000 farming units, raising, wildlife animals, more than 100, different species, and 54 species were confirmed or, appraised by the State Forest Bureau as being successful, domestication, efforts. And it's an industry of 8.7 billion yuan. According to the Chinese wildlife, of course by the early of this century, and of course other wildlife-related industries boomed. Now, for example, zoos and aquariums. China has perhaps the world's biggest number of zoos, aquariums, safari parks, and altogether 700. And because of mainland Chinese visitors going to Taiwan, going to Hong Kong, and revived the zoos and aquariums in Taiwan. They were bankrupting, but when the mainlanders, come in large number and make those, zoos and aquariums started to, to have a new life. And of course, a large number of, animals, extinct and never recovered. And this one, the one which I mentioned, the Yangtze, freshwater dolphin, one of the oldest, animal species living on the Yangtze River. So, wildlife devastation after the wildlife protection law. So, in fact, so as a result, the law is not working, and the situation becomes even worse. China has, elephants, as I said, Siberian tiger reduced to about 14 individuals. Sometimes say 20, sometimes 14, because they crossed the border into, Siberia, Russia. Ibis, recovered a little bit, but still, way below the historical number. And of course, Chinese traders, go outside the country for products like, ivory. Right. So about 60%, different statistics show up to 60% to 70% of the illegal, ivory trafficking, the destination was mainland China. You see in this, chart, you can see it. Rhino, poaching, and a considerable number of the rhinos, were, sent illegally to mainland China. So the Chinese have, exploited to the brink of extinction of the Chinese species. Now they go outside the country to search for animal products in other countries, like riot turtles in the Philippines and dead pangolins. Right? And I remember when I was little, in my hometown, we would go out to the country and sat on the grass. And you just look around, you see, snake sheds everywhere, okay? But now you seldom see snakes. Where are those snakes? Captured and eaten. Now, one of the things which people, failed to recognize at the time when the wildlife protection law was enacted in 1988, 1989, was animal cruelty. So, captive institutions in China, wildlife captive institutions, are involved in doing a lot of, shocking animal cruelty, practices like this one, throwing a live goat into a pack of hungry lions. And this is for children to pick the live goat to be thrown into. And force, wildlife animals to perform, unnatural and dangerous, and give, a chimpanzee, cigarettes for him to be hooked for like 16 years. So what has gone wrong? So apparently, Chinese, scholars have, over the years, since 2004, and I myself participated in the discussion and published, article about the problem of China's, wildlife protection law. These are the issues that I identified. that the law is not working. Mission confusion, you don't know what the law is all about, what the purpose of the law, and protection list outdated, okay, and protection agencies underfunded, compensation never fulfilled, never paid, and violation undeterred. So toothless. And of course, lack of anti-cruelty provisions in wildlife protection law. So efforts started in 2005, I believe around 2005, by Chinese scholars and activists, and talking to the government, and through published papers, journalistic reports, and investigations that China's wildlife protection law must be revised, so that it will not be confusing. Right? One thing, I'm not going to go over all the other issues, like toothless, cannot be enforced, because these are common issues of all the other countries' wildlife law. Is that right? But this thing, mission confusion is very unique to China. Why it's unique to China? I'm going to explain a little bit later. Now, if you look at the wildlife protection law, why we say the object is confusing? What's the purpose of wildlife law? Wildlife protection law should be protection, should be the purpose. Is that right? Protection, that should be the purpose, not something else. But in the Chinese wildlife protection law, resources, utilization, breeding, all these concepts were repeated 44 times. I'm just doing counting of the words, okay? But the articles related to utilization, domestication, breeding, wildlife resources, dominate the document. So give you the impression, is this a wildlife protection law or wildlife resource utilization law? Okay. Sale, and of course hunting, I do not include hunting. So articles 1, 2, 4, 5, 9, 17, 22, devoted entirely to wildlife use. So this is wildlife protection law. And Article 17 is more specific and explicit. The state shall encourage the domestication and breeding of wildlife animals. So go ahead, do it. We support you. Right. So I'm just going to, so this is a screenshot from the law. So the red highlighted and underscored, the three objectives, okay? Protecting, of course. And second, rationally utilizing wildlife resources. And then the third one, maintaining ecological balance. Now, maintaining ecological balance is just, oh, by the way, ecological balance is also the objective. Never talk about in detail, so. And in Article 3, the state protects the lawful rights and interests of units and individuals engaged in the development or utilization of wildlife resources according to law. See, very specific. So, the question, scholars, experts, now in August this year, we received Human Society International and University of Houston and one other institution, we host an animal law, US-China animal law conference specifically devoted to addressing the wildlife revision efforts in China. And one of the China's legislature staff who is drafting the law was in Washington, D.C. And we got to know some of the issues, the differences. And this, I'm just summarizing. One of the arguments is the question scholars are asking, is wildlife breeding still relevant in such a law? Of course, there are different views. One say yes, it's traditional production, okay? And others say yes, only for a small number of species, or breeding for conservation only. So there are three positions on that issue. Now, the most heatedly debated aspect of the issue is if commercial breeding is outdated, it should be completely eliminated. And we get the idea that the discussions was most heated because of this, because China has some of the most horrendous wildlife farming practices, and I'm sure Jill Robinson is going to talk about today, bear farming. I personally I went with Jill once to a small bear farm in Tianjin, and I went to another some of the so-called the world's biggest bear farm. It's a practice that there is no comparison. There is only one comparison to bear farming, which is slavery. Some people say, let's improve it. There is no way you can improve slavery. Can we improve slavery? So if you say you can improve, bear farming, you are saying you can improve slavery, okay? So something cannot be improved. Right? So bear farming and tiger farming, China is also experimenting rhino farming. I don't know if you have heard about it. So they try to experiment rhino farming so that rhinos, they don't have to cut off the horn, they can shave it. So they developed so-called rhino shaving technology, just shaving, so that it can be used as medicine. Of course, we don't want to make that argument. Is rhino, horn effective? Okay, so we have to do a scientific, right? Is bear farming and bear bio irreplaceable? Okay, and Professor Song already said. I'm sure Jill Robinson is also going to say there are so many herbal substitutes to be used. So opponents of commercial breeding who are involved in revising the wildlife law are saying that if we keep commercial breeding, we are sending the wrong message to the society. We are sustaining demand, and also more importantly, it would constitute a greater threat to bears in the wild. You know why? Because the Chinese, they tend to say, farmed bear bio is not good. The bio from the wild bears is better. So there would always people go to the wild to get the wild bears. That's why China 2009 State Forestry Bureau did a survey, and they still did not find only found about estimate about 24,000 bears in the wild, which is not a big number. Okay. And also finally, farms, wildlife farms would be used as cover for illegal wildlife trade, or we call it, wildlife or laundry, So, but anyway, so finally, what are the issues? Why there is such a debate? Why there are still voices for wildlife farming, commercial farming? Why law enforcement is the issue? Okay, there is a unique Chinese problem. The unique Chinese problem is China. The is a political problem, not a cultural problem. The government is pursuing a development strategy which values economic growth, sometimes at the expense of many other important issues. So the priority of development. Now, a few days ago, the Chinese government announced they still have 70 million people needs to be lifted out of poverty by 2020. That means a lot of things we may be able to do, we cannot do. We have to feed them first. Okay, so this one, so economic development has always been the issue that the government has been using. Right? That's why China has the world's biggest, fur animal farming industry. If you look at the Suning, from 80s to the 40s, that county, because of fur animal farming, the economic standing shot up, to the 40th place. That's why it is very hard for the national government, the local government, to do things which would impact adversely development, because employment, food on the table means stability, means regime stability, political stability. Especially at the time when the Chinese Communist regime into its 66 year of rule. I don't know if you have heard about it. Communist regimes don't survive more than 75 years. So the Chinese authors are very nervous, okay? It's coming up. So they don't want that process to, stop. They don't want their, regime stability to be to be sacrificed. So I would say, finally, in conclusion, in China, it's not culture. Okay, Chinese people are just like you and me. Okay, think very much like, if you look at China's, pet, culture, growing up, young people think very much like American young people. Okay, so politics is not culture. Okay, so major breakthroughs in the foreseeable future is unlikely. Okay, wildlife will still be considered resources, but we have to be optimistic. Okay, culture changing is underway in China. So there are voices against the commercial breeding, voices for ecological balance, and voices against animal cruelty. So I would say, yes, China's animal protection progress has global significance. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those wonderful presentations. We do have a few minutes for questions, if anybody has a question for either Dr. Li or Dr. Wei. Any questions? Yes, and speak loudly. We're having microphone problems, so speak loudly.
I've heard that in order to protect rhinos, they've been dyeing their horns pink. Have you heard of that? And can you talk a little bit about it?
I have not heard about that. Dye the rhino pink.
Same with dye that they use in like the pink carpet paper or something like that, and so it makes the ivory like, not useful.
I have not heard about that. 犀牛角把它染成红色。
And there might be some, Natasha, if you're in here, you might be able, you can talk to Natasha about that. We've been recently seeing some photos of that happening, and I know that I believe Natasha and some other colleagues are a little bit more aware of what's happening currently with that issue. Yeah. Yes.
Does the internet have an effect now, like when the younger Chinese people go on the internet and they see how the other countries treat animals and pets and elephants and everything? Is that going to affect the younger people?
So asking to what extent has the internet influenced young?
Yes, I think the younger generation, the university students and even the high school, middle school students, they use a smartphone very, very often. So with this new media connected, and they communicate very, very easy, very easily. So several cases occurred in China about animal protection, actually connected by the internet, by the news media, by the smartphone. So I think new technology can change greatly this situation. Yeah, and there are so many websites about animal protection, animal education. Yes, new technology.
Yes, social media is very big in China. Even though China blocks, Facebook, but the Chinese government has China has its own version of Facebook. YouTube is blocked in mainland China, and many young people can, go over the, firewall, can access Facebook. They have that special software. China is, wild in all kinds of softwares, right? Cost as very cheap. And social media, for example, we all have the phones. There is, we have a Twitter. They have a, WeChat, and I got, daily the Chinese animal protection groups, posts about where a dog needs to be rescued, where a truck with 500 dogs, let's go out and intercept it. All this kind of information out there.
Peter, I just sent this picture sent to you WeChat.
Yeah, he just sent me a picture through WeChat. I'm in the United States and he is in China.
And also to my students in China. Yeah, and all this conference, the picture. Yeah, so it's very convenient.
Yes, Chris.
At the roundtable we did, one thing that if you could talk about that surprised me was China's one-child, one of the byproducts of China's one-child policy was that families were then getting more companion animals to be, replace their surrogate siblings, and that has led to this greater affinity in the new generation that they have towards animals generally.
I would completely agree. We say that China is also experiencing, culture change. The rural culture, which sees animal as tools or instruments or ways to make money, is now, challenged by a more urban culture, which sees animal as a source of comfort. Right, especially if you look at China, China's urbanization has been stunning. This year I would say about 55% of the population living in an urban area, compared with 30 years ago. 30 years ago was about 18%. So it's the fastest urbanization, and a lot of people move into the country, and also single child generation. And these are the people never knowing hardships. They never starved. Okay, the single child and were brought up in a better condition, and many of the urban families have pets. So their view of animals completely different from the parents, especially the grandparents' generation. And I'm sure you have read or seen some of the footages or pictures of highway interception of dog trucks, right? So who are those people intercepting those trucks? People who were born in the 1990s. 1980s, and urbanized. And also one thing I can tell you, very much like the United States, in China's animal protection movement, there is a sizable male, activists. Not just, we understand that, animal protection movement is dominated by, ladies, right? With a good reason, though. But, like in the United States, you can see a lot of guys there. I went to other countries, I don't see that, guys, so I was, yes.
Right here.
So I'm actually interested to hear a little bit more about what that sort of activism looks like, just because my understanding is that a lot of the tactics that we've been talking about in terms of legislative advocacy or suing government are avenues that aren't available in China in the same way. So I'm wondering what kind of civil society activism is actually possible in terms of achieving.
And just, can you, so will you please repeat?
Oh, yes, you can. You can sue. Yes. And there are more and more administrative the issues, and you can sue government, and so many local government, I mean regional government, were lost. Including in my city, in Hefei, it's a new city. It's a high-tech and educational base in China. And 20 years ago, it's the population about 500,000. And nowadays, just as Peter said, it's a very fast urbanization with a population about 8 million. So, and the local government, the Hefei metropolitan area divided into the several districts. So, I have such cases. I have my students and some students, lawyers, they sue the district government and the metropolitan the government, and so many cases that the government lost. Yes.
Animal advocacy, yes.
Yes. Sorry, just one case. I experienced that. I drove a car. And the policeman stopped my car, and because I turned, perhaps it's in the wrong way, but there is no sign. So my car were towed. Towed. Okay, very good English. And towed away. And the fine is several thousand RMB. I did not agree with that. So we sue. Of course. So the government lost. The car returned to me, and there is no fine, no anything. But I think just the regional government or the metropolitan area the government. I haven't heard about you sue for the central government.
Using legal actions against government has to be cautious in China. Has to be very cautious. Even things, Human Society International has activities, campaigns in China. We have to be very cautious. We have to stay away from any sensitive political issues. Anything related to Tibet, don't talk about it. Human rights, labor rights, women's rights, don't talk about those. So yes, you can, but there are other ways, protest, but don't direct anything against the government. You can direct against the dog meat traders that are bad, but don't say